Here we are, another Extra Bases on Christmas week. Jason Bristol, Jeremy Booth. Jeremy, a lot has happened. Well, some things have happened since we last talked, namely the three-team trade which nets Mike Burrows from the Pittsburgh Pirates to the Houston Astros. Of course, the Astros giving up Melton and Brito. Does this validate in some ways what you were talking about last time, that the Astros were checking in on another Pirates pitcher?
I mean, if I had a magic eight ball, I'd say yes. You know what I mean? I think it looks like Dana's looking for pitching, and Keller fits, like we talked about, he fits where they are. But Pirates didn't want to get rid of him. They didn't want to deal him. They didn't want to be part of that.
Or
Doesn't
the
sound
Astros weren't offering enough?
sure. You
They're
know,
all the
I-
same, is what you're saying to
yeah,
me?
yeah, because it says that Jacob Melton and company is not enough to go get a Mitch Keller, right? The Pirates think he can get a better package for him. Um, the market would dictate that they're probably correct, right? They're probably correct with that. So, look, Tampa gets the people they players they got. It was a three-way trade, wasn't it? Tampa got a couple of guys, and then Brandon Lowe went to Pittsburgh, and so you're talking about moving the guys around the horn. That makes sense. And if they're going to get Brandon Lowe, who's a pretty good player, it doesn't mean they're going to move Mitch Keller now. Maybe they're going to take another shot at that division. Now look, why? I don't know. I mean, you've got the Phillies, you've got you got the Mets. That's enough over there. That's a tough division to play in. So, in the Braves, which last year had a very disappointing year, and you got to figure they're going to bounce back somehow. They gave the Astros Nick Allen, and they picked up Mauricio Dubon, so they're in a better position. The Braves. So when it comes to what they're looking at, yeah, it validates it. It also validates what we've been saying for years, is that at some point that trade capital is going to run out. And they just don't have any more to do to make a big impact move like Mitch Keller.
Will Dana have to continue to be creative and essentially bring another team in to these types of deals for him to land what the Astros need? Or do you believe that this was merely a one-off?
Three-team trades aren't real common anyway.
Exactly.
They're just not. So I mean, there's probably a fit where these guys could have had a need here, and these other two guys had a need there, and the Astros get an arm, which really is a depth arm, right? I mean, this isn't a guy that you got to expect a whole lot out of at the front of the rotation.
No,
You
he's got to be middle of the rotation,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, he's a depth arm to help them. Maybe there's an analytical tweak they make, which they've been good at for years, and maybe he becomes part of that rotation, the back end. Also, maybe not. So you don't know. So it's kind of a low risk deal for the Astros, which seems to be the trend. Let me go find some low risk guys and low money, low dollars to go with it, and then maybe I'll be able to get some impact somewhere else, which also would lead to another pitcher like Keller, even if that's not. Maybe you bring Keller in, it's a long term contract. Didn't work here, but they're obviously on the hunt for pitching and aggressively.
Something that Baseball America posted earlier today I found very interesting. And of course, this is in your world,
Yeah.
which is development. The post by Baseball America was: college baseball has become an increasingly central development engine for the professional game. 27 players made their major league debuts within 2 years of their draft season in 2025. Could this increase after the next CBA? And then Baseball America quoting a high level major college baseball coach anonymously. Quote, I think it's pretty obvious at this point that MLB wants to offload a lot of the player development to college baseball. Do you get that same sense based on the circles of which you're working within?
I have a different insight into that, and I'm not putting down or minimizing whoever the unnamed coach was for this reason, not only because I don't want to do it, but really this is what he's saying. He's saying a lot of the development has to happen in college baseball because of how Major League Baseball is contracting a little bit. Um, Major League Baseball is all right. Major League Baseball is playing with the draft. And for those of you guys, the fans out there that want to understand how this works, take an interest, this is a pretty nuanced part of the game, but it feeds the Astros and all the other clubs. So here we go. Okay. For a long time, the scholarships in college baseball were Ridiculously spaced out for baseball. It was 11.7 when I was in college, and it was 11.7 up to a couple years ago. And without dating myself, that's a span of, 25, 30 years. Okay. So that's a long time. And they were 11.7 before I got there. Some change was needed. Um, Major League Baseball has long wanted to shrink the draft for a few reasons. One of them has to do with cost control. I'll pause here and say, as part of 1A, that's point one, here's point 1A, the most effective and cost effective way to acquire talent is the draft. Okay. So you would want to put more money into that in my mind. However, that's the direction they've decided to go. A lot of that has to do with what they call diminishing returns. Start thinking stock market and assets. And if you want to know how people are looking at players today, all you have to do is go look at Craig Breslow. And I encourage all of you to look at what Craig Breslow said about acquiring Wilson Contreras from the Cardinals as how they're speaking about players. It was like somebody was opening up the Wall Street Journal and speaking about a stock they were looking at in a boardroom. And if you look at that, and yes, players are assets, that's what they are. If you look at it that way, then you can understand why they're contracting. Most of the money in the draft goes in the early first part of the top part of the draft. It's top heavy, most of it. Okay. So that means that the more money you get, either A, you're a better selection, or B, you're going to get the opportunities to justify the pick and the dollars that were spent. 9 out of 10 times, 9.9 out of 10 times, that's going to be the case. That negates the need for players that they don't consider to be big league ready or guys that are blocked or whatever the case may be. And as such, Major League Baseball decided that those affiliates and those jobs were unnecessary. Okay. If you're with me so far, you can start counting backwards, right? You have scholarships on the bottom with college. Those need to increase. You have too many spots in the minor league level at the top and too many draft picks in Major League Baseball's opinion, and some contraction happening there. Okay. That forced about 10, 12 years ago, and this really started to happen, college coaches leaving school to go into pro ball, directly into pro baseball. Now, this wasn't uncommon ever really in history of time. This was an unprecedented rate. Some guys straight to the big leagues. Wes Johnson, who's now at Georgia, did this. And a couple other guys, Tony Vitello, of course, and this year went to the Giants. But it wasn't uncommon. It became very common for guys to leave college and become minor league coordinators and assistant directors of player development and any number of jobs. Donegal Fergus, who's the head coach at Loyola Marymount, was a coach of the Twins as a coordinator, and on and on and on, right? So this was a trend that began to happen that coincided with the infusion into the game, and I want to use another N word, meaning IN F word, but I'm going to go in infusion, okay? Infusion into the game of what I would call driveline educated personnel. Let's throw as hard as we can. Let's do all these other things that are over muscle patterning. If you're still with me, start thinking about some of the way the game has been played. This is nuanced, okay? All that to tie this into a very neat bow. People making decisions were no longer baseball lifers. They were no longer guys that were invested in the step-by-step development, certain number of bats, certain number. They wanted to see a lot of raw power and a bias to the ball real hard because that sold. That sold to fans, and that really started an era that's well before this one. That's back in the late 90s and in the 2000s when that era was transforming the game. Those kids that are making decisions now as executives, they grew up in that era. So that's what they saw. They saw the video games, they saw the 100-mile-an-hour fastballs, they saw the 550-foot home runs, and they saw the strikeouts, and they didn't care because they wanted to hang out until they saw those two outcomes. All right. Got three-headed monster here. Got the birth of analytics and a little bit of evolution. You have a college system with coaches who are more schooled in that are going back to Major League Baseball, and or going into Major League Baseball, and you have the desire to shrink the draft. Okay. What that forces is it forces college baseball to do a job of developing players there. College is a tighter funnel than high school. There's no way around it. It is tighter funnel than high school. And it's a tighter funnel than the international sports. All right, international baseball. That means better talent versus better talent. That's just the way it is. More consistent, makes analytics and performance statistics much more reliable. Go back to the Moneyball draft, the one that was chronicled in the movie of 2000, to find when that happened. Okay. Um, 2002, actually, 2002. Moving ahead. All that evolution to find this out later. Major League Baseball has achieved its goal started in COVID of shortening the draft. It's currently at 20 rounds. All signs point to a further contraction of rounds in the next CBA, 15, 10, whatever the case may be. They've contracted affiliates. Every club has lost at least one and maybe another one coming, depending on how the CBA works out, which shrinks the pool of jobs. International is still wide open. They can get their youth there. High school kids here with the showcase market. And some of you will ask why we're different. Trust me when I say we are, but some people, the showcase market, um, has not created better players as a whole. A lot of guys who get drafted or you would think that are ranked real high out of high school flare out fast, faster than ever before. And so with that in mind, there's another layer there. So these guys that are making decisions in the draft room, they want to turn around and they want to see more performance and more history. Now here's the last part. Okay. This is all going to tie back into your point. The fan experience. Major League Baseball is the only sport when a player is drafted, he doesn't show up right away. If you're the NBA and you're drafted, Rockets draft you, guess what? You're in the NBA. Okay? If you're first round pick, you're on the roster. If you're not, maybe you're in the G League, but you have a chance to show up in Houston immediately. In the NFL, if you're drafted, of course, depending where you are, you're at least going to camp with the team that drafts you. You're in the limelight of the sport. There's no minor league system. There's hockey's the same way, with the only exception of the kids that are in high school. They still go back to play in some of the youth leagues, but for the most part, guys arrive right away. Okay. In baseball, that's not the case. A guy can be drafted here, Jacob Melton being a prime example, and 4 years later never show up in Houston. Okay. And so Major League Baseball needs to change that fan experience to have cities connect with their players a little more. Well, how do you shorten that window and accomplish all those goals at one time? You put them back into college baseball and you say, "Hey, we're going to go ahead, and there's way more money in college baseball for coaching than there is in professional baseball now. So what do? Well, the talent starts returning back to college baseball. There's connective tissue from college to the big leagues because they speak the same language. You have guys playing in what we call the Power Four conferences and others as well in different areas of college baseball that have tools that aren't ready to sign yet, but develop better in a year or two, or even three, depending on the player. And all of a sudden now they go out and they're a year and a half, 2 years away from the big leagues. They're trying to create as many Paul Skeens and Tarek Skubals and Bobby Witt Juniors as they can. And Bobby Witt's a high school guy, but he was a well-advanced high school guy who flew through the minor leagues. So the more of those guys they create, that's the service of college baseball. College baseball is footing the bill, specifically NIL collectives now, by the way, footing the bill for these kids for their development so they can go learn how to win and learn how to perform because college teams have to win and there's no time for bad baseball there. There just isn't because of the money that's involved. The guy comes out and now where he was going to go to the complex or maybe he was going to go to short season A, now he's in full season high A and it's an accelerated path. So college baseball accomplishes all of those goals for Major League Baseball. It becomes an unwitting participant, and in a way, it lengthens their game as well. It makes college baseball older because now they have to win more. So it's a domino effect in a bunch of different ways. Baseball America is not wrong, and if you're still with me after all of that, because again, that was a lot, right? If you're still with me after all that, then you can understand why some of the product you're seeing in the big leagues shows up so much later now and doesn't develop as superstar oriented. The days of the Bregmans and even the Peñas, that's the last batch of these guys. You're going to see more guys that are going to come right out and they're going to go right up or they're not. And that's what's going on.
I think of Shanuel from the Angels,
Great example.
Kurtz,
Opposite of the spectrum. Great example. Yeah. Yeah. Kurtz's
Nieto
rookie.
from the
Who?
Angels,
Who?
Zach Nieto.
Yeah, similar to Kurtz. Another good example. Right to the big leagues. Yep. And performed.
They're saying that with Major League Baseball's collective bargaining agreement set to expire December 2026,
Yeah.
coaches are increasingly mindful of the possibility of structural changes at the professional level that could affect the college game, including scenarios that could involve fewer draft rounds or further contraction of the minor leagues. Let me say that again. Fewer draft rounds or further contraction of the minor leagues.
Hmm. Interesting concept. It's been a goal for a long time. We just went down that road with it. What I can say is that it's much easier to have somebody else pay the bill for the bad baseball than it is for you to pay the bill for the bad baseball, right? If you're White Sox fans, and um, it's funny, I picked that team because we have a
Yeah, we
very
know one.
we know a guy. You're tired of watching this stuff. You need some guys to arrive a little bit. But look, I mean, there's the guys you gave are great examples. Shanuel and Kurtz play the same position. I would argue, and I think very convincingly, like everybody else who's got eyes, that Kurtz and Shanu are not the same player.
No.
Okay.
But
If you
coming
look at,
out, no?
I wasn't, I'm not,
Nah,
I don't want to pick on the
Kurtz was,
Angels.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to pick on the Angels. They do what they can, but, um, I don't think that was a great pick. But Nito, same type of deal and great pick. You know what I mean? So, um, it's happening more and more around the game. It'll continue to happen. Guys at the top will get to the big leagues, and for every one of those, there's an Andrew Vaughn or a Spencer Torkelson that doesn't become what you think they're going to. Certainly not when you think they're gonna arrive.
Boy, I was just looking at Kurtz's numbers this season. Woo. 290, 36, 86, 1,000 OPS at the age of 22, played in 117 games.
And
Put that over
four of those
162 games, he's at 50 homers. Now,
and a
next year, of
four,
course, will be the big transition year.
but he had a 4 home run game in Houston, didn't he? As
Yes, he
well.
did.
Yeah. So I mean, look, you do something like that, following it up with anything close is a success. That's a tough one. That's a tough act to follow.
Certainly being tomorrow is Christmas. And a year ago at this time, Jeremy, we lost Rickey Henderson. Have you thought about that at all this week?
Yeah, I talked to Dave Stewart a few days ago. The thing about Ricky is that he's timeless, right? I mean, it's not a year ago at this time. I remember when I heard, I was walking Bernie, um, I was just let an involuntary yell, when I was told. A year later, um, yeah, I mean, you pay your tribute, you never forget. He puts a smile on your face, and that's how he'd want you to live, same way he was living. So, I thought about it, but like anything, especially that personality, um, it becomes a passage of time where you smile when you think of him, and try to make others feel the way he made you feel when you were in the room with him. That's
And you
that's the best thing.
you recognized him. You recognized him at your most recent main event.
Yeah, we had those jerseys made, it said honoring Ricky on the back, and um, it was a year late, but we appreciate the Rangers and the A's and the people that were around with us to make that happen. It meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to the people in our network. Unfortunately, we're not in the big leagues, so it comes once a year where you can
Yeah.
do something like that. But it was still a momentous occasion. So yeah, I mean, I've thought about it, but I smile now. I'm smiling about his presence and the lessons he taught me as I'm able to move forward.
I know you just said it was a year late, but I look at it quite the another way that the fact that yes, your event was September,
End of September, yeah,
end of September.
yeah.
Obviously, that was your first opportunity, but 9 months away from his death, it was a nice way for people not to forget. Because certainly people are going to remember around this time of year, but I would say, listen, I think you played a small part in some form, fashion, when it comes to the baseball gods of making sure that he is remembered in September instead of just December, the final week of December ish. So,
Well, we certainly here have some of those jerseys with honoring Ricky on the back, and a lot of the players, all the players that were there will have that jersey, and his memory is going to live on. I mean, he's an unforgettable. No matter, let's say this: no matter when Ricky passed, it was too soon.
yes.
You know what I mean? It didn't matter when it is. He could have been 99 years old. You go, man, that would quit. You know what I mean? I mean, he was just that type of guy, that type of personality. Um, I will say, without giving too much away, that this time in my life here, um, it's a very transformative time. A lot of the lessons that I've been taught, the mentorship, the time on the field, the time in clubhouses, uh, having three general managers mentor me on a daily basis, and others that have been um, with me and connected, and just the lineage I'm so fortunate to have. Rickey was a hallmark of that, and it had me look back and reflect on just the path that was being traveled. And I'd be lying if I said it didn't impact, at least for me, my 2025 and how I went about my business. And there was no more of allowing things that shouldn't stand to stand. There was no more of spending time in moments that were past that were maybe a little painful. We all do that, but it wasn't going to happen anymore. And the end result is we're in a different spot. And so I'm very thankful for you, who's with me daily, and the people around me. But the lessons there are to enjoy what you're doing, give everything you have, and make an impact. And if you do that, the rest of it kind of falls in line. So Rickey was able to do that with me. It's been a year. Um, it was a very fast and also a very slow year in some ways, but nonetheless, when he finished his job, I think, of transforming me, and his final lesson was to go out with a smile on his face, and that's how I remember him.
All right, everybody, that's going to do it for another Extra Bases. For Jeremy, I'm Jason. As always, leave your comments, concerns, questions, whatever below on YouTube, and we will make sure to answer them on a future episode of Extra Bases. Jeremy, Merry Christmas. To all of you who celebrate out there, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays from all of us at Extra Bases. And when I say all of us, that would be the two of us. All right, everybody, have a good one.